Nintendo!
Hey everyone, welcome back with Beano Mac, where today we're going to continue our playthrough. We're actually going to end our playthrough of Super Smash Bros. Brawl Subspace Emissary mode. I do plan on doing, some All-Star and some boss battles as well with, some of my favorite characters. I'm just going to kind of play until, the game gets old. It just doesn't become fun anymore for me, And that could be a while, honestly. That might be a few weeks, but this is the Great Maze, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna do all the boss battles and all the characters that you have to fight inside the maze, because it took me like 2.5 hours to do this. Even if I were to redo the whole level and stuff like that, I mean it's so much backtracking and irritation and stuff like that. I mean even the best of players, it takes them like 40 minutes to do the Great Maze. I've kind of complained at length about my issues with the Great Maze and stuff like that. I mean it's literally just random levels sprung together, reused assets is all it really is. It's something I think is definitely just meant to pad out the length of the story that's quite frankly not needed. Even though it took me about only like 4 hours to get to this point, and I think 4 hours is pretty good time for a campaign, so I don't really understand why they felt the need to kind of drag it out. And I get, I've never really played the Kirby games. I'm sure the Great Maze, it might make more sense in that game, I don't know, but in Super Smash Bros. Brawl Subspace Emissary, it's just pretty much one of the lamest things. It's honestly probably the only blemish on this mode as a whole, if I'm being honest. I think if like the Great Maze maybe was like a level in which it was just like an extra bonus thing after you complete the game, it's just something fun to do and stuff like that, but non-canon to the story or whatever, I mean I think that'd be pretty awesome. But the fact that you have to go through the Great Maze before you can finish the game and complete the final boss, and I don't know, I think it's just honestly at its core, I think it's quite literally just poor game design here, folks. But like I said, I mean I'm going through and I'm taking out all the weird subspace versions of all the characters and the bosses and all that sort of stuff. So once you actually get to fight these guys, it actually gets pretty fun and stuff like that. But you got to keep going through all these different areas, and even if you do get a map and stuff like that, and I think eventually once you get to a certain point, like even marks on the map, where all the things are and stuff like that. But it's still, when you're first doing it, it's confusing. It's just a pain in the ass. So. And I can tell you right now, I was not having fun with it then, so I mean, it's just not going to be very fun to watch me, go through, the slog and the backtrack and all that other stuff. So this was kind of just my solution to that. You get to see all the action without all the, lameness in between. But I think I've kind of gotten all my feelings out on the freaking Great Maze at this point. I figure at this point maybe I'll go over some cool trivia I found on the Super Smash Bros. Site and take it with a grain of salt, because some of this might not always be true and stuff like that. And for example, this first one I have not heard anything about before, so it may have been confirmed false or whatever, but we'll see. So the first one, we're gonna start with Super Smash Bros. 64. Apparently Pit, it says, before he made it into Brawl, he was supposed to be an unlockable character in the original, but was cut due to the sudden popularity of Pokemon and replaced by Jigglypuff. Yeah, that one I just don't believe whatsoever, because if they really wanted him in there, he would have been in Melee the next game. And second, I'm pretty sure the reason why Jigglypuff was chosen as an extra character, I think all of them actually were, Sakurai said all the unlockable characters were chosen to be extras because they had data already in the game, essentially. So, Jigglypuff, for example, obviously, he's very similar in a lot of features to Kirby, the way that they both, puff up, they're both balls and have very similar shapes and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, like, the skeleton was kind of there for, Jigglypuff to, essentially have less work done on him than it would for an original character. Then Luigi, obviously, he was just, Green Mario at the time, so it made perfect sense. Captain Falcon, before it became like a Nintendo property, I think it was called like something weird, like it wasn't King of Fighters, so that's an actual series, but Smash Bros was gonna be something completely different, which is random, guys that all essentially looked like unmodeled Captain Falcons and stuff like that. So since the data for them was already in the game, and stuff like that. Obviously, Captain Falcon was an easy inclusion. Ness, I can't really remember why. You know, he was considered an easy inclusion and stuff like that. But, you know, I think there was a specific reason for him being in there. They already had data for him, or maybe it was just a simple character model. I don't know. Maybe he was the only unique one. Our next one, the only Nintendo 64 game to feature Samus Aran and Ness. And, yeah, that's true, because Ness obviously was, you know, he didn't come out. Ness came out on the SNES, and, you know, that was about it for his whole story. He only had the one game and stuff like that. And Samus, I don't know, I think there's a story behind it, but I never really understood why there wasn't a Metroid 64 or something like that. But yeah, it's weird to think that, like, you know, of all, you know, franchises, Metroid was not on the Nintendo 64. Alright, it was considered at one point that 2 characters from Rare were going to be included, including Banjo, Kazooie, and James Bond. I've definitely heard that for Melee, like, as in, like, they just were considered for it, like, you know, thought of and stuff like that, but I did not hear that for Smash 64, so I'm actually, I'm reading this stuff off of the IMDb website, so once again, you know, take it with a grain of salt here, but some of it's pretty interesting. The idea of characters entering on the folding platforms came from the classic Mario Bros. 1983 on arcade cabinets, home consoles, and handheld games. In the game, Mario and Luigi descend from above the camera on the folding platforms after losing a life. Yep, I have played, you know, Mario Bros. And we're talking about not Super Mario Bros., but Mario Bros. And one that's based off of that stage that, you know, you fight Rob on and stuff like that, and it has like the shell capers, I think they're called, or whatever the heck they call the crabs in that game. And yeah, that's just how it works. I remember, like, it's not the exact same, but every time that we died, and we died often, we died quickly, yeah, the platforms would, those same platforms would come out, and I noticed that the first time we played. Peach, Bowser, Mewtwo, King Dedede, Gannondorf, and Marth were originally supposed to be playable characters for this game. I've never heard about Peach being originally playable, but every other character I have heard of. You know, it doesn't really surprise me too much if she was going to be planned at some point, but obviously, you know, I never heard any stories about that. Bowser, you know, he wanted Bowser and King Dedede and Gannondorf all to be villains of the game to be included to add more variety. He just didn't have enough time to develop them. Mewtwo and, yeah, Mewtwo, I believe, probably would have been included instead of Jigglypuff if he had more development time to create a more unique character. And then Marth, you know, once again, just didn't have enough time, but they wanted to have a sword fighter, you know, to contrast Link, you know, and be more of a light kind of sword fighter and more skill based and stuff like that, I suppose. Plus, I mean, Fire Emblem in Japan, at least at the time, was still pretty popular. You know, I think when I don't know the history of Fire Emblem very well, but I think, like, it started out with a completely different director, and you know, he had his story, and like it wasn't, you know, I don't believe it was all just you know, like one and done kind of storylines and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, like, I think some characters and some storylines returned and stuff like that. I think even on the PlayStation 1, he tried to, because he got, like, canned from the job for whatever reason. I remember I seen a documentary on it. I just can't remember why, but I think he was just very problematic in the company and stuff like that. And I believe that he actually tried to continue the story on the PlayStation 1 with the same kind of game and stuff like that, just slowly with different characters, and I think Nintendo sued him or something like that. But it's a very, very, very interesting story about the original Fire Emblem, you know, creator and stuff like that. He's kind of like disgraced, I think, at this point, unfortunately. But you know, there's a very good documentary about that on YouTube that you should check out that I watched a while ago. That's why, unfortunately, I can't remember it. And then Super Smash Bros. Was originally going to be called Dragon King, the fighting game. That's what I was mentioning earlier, you know, when I was talking about Captain Falcon and stuff like that. And it was going to be for the SNES, apparently, using the Super FX chip that rendered 3D polygon graphics. And I believe that was what they used for the original Star Fox. And what they were going to use for Star Fox 2, obviously that got canceled, but eventually, you know, they got Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic. Star Fox 2 always interests me because it's kind of like a very similar story to, you know, Resident Evil 1.5, in which it's something that people hunted for the longest time, and all the fans wanted to see it. And then once they got it, it was like, at least the consensus to me for both of those games was, wow, this really, you know, we can see why this got canceled. These games are really kind of boring. So that's always just something I find interesting. But it is nice that we eventually got to see whether they actually were in the end anyway. It didn't feature any of the 12 playable characters in the final version. Instead, it was going to be the first game of an entirely new series. Yeah, let's be honest, I mean, this Dragon King, the fighting game thing, I don't care what kind of characters they would have created, I just don't think Smash would be the same if it wasn't the Nintendo characters, you know. Mario really adds a lot to that stuff. And I'm sorry, geez Louise, I mean, holy crap, my bird is going fucking insane in the other room, man. So hopefully, you know, you don't pick that stuff up too much on the mic, but either way, hopefully you get a laugh out of it. But let's continue on here. So the only Smash Bros. Game to feature Master Hand during the game's intro, that's pretty interesting. There's a total of 10 different models of the fighting Polygon team. Each represents each of the 12 characters with similar fighting techniques. Only one Polygon fighter represents 3 characters at the same time, which is Mario, Luigi, and Ness. Interesting. The playable characters in this game are all main protagonists in their own game. The only Super Smash Bros. Video game to be rated E by the ESRB. All the others are an E+10 rating, as well as a T rating in the case of Melee and Brawl, which is pretty interesting. I mean, at Brawl, I think, you know, we've seen in the Subspace that I think Mr. Master Hand was bleeding after his fight with Tabuu and stuff like that, so I can kind of get that. I mean, everybody calls this the dark and gritty take on the Smash Bros. Series, and people for some reason complain about like how detailed the characters are. You know, saying like Mario's overalls are too detailed and they don't like it, it's unsettling, yada yada. I don't know. I think Brawl has some legitimate complaints, but I think people just also add on a lot more complaints than are necessary, in my opinion. Uh-oh. And obviously it contains 12 playable characters. According to his character bio, Kirby is only 8 inches tall. Super Smash Bros. Was developed with a low budget, and it had low publicity when it launched in Japan, and was even intended to be Japan exclusive. However, the game's success prompted Nintendo to localize it for international audiences. Luigi takes his appearance from Super Mario World, having purple overalls rather than dark blue. However, this is not true of his artwork. I'm not sure about that, I have to look into that. Captain Falcon's congratulations screen is the only one to use a pre-existing image from an original game. In this case, the first unlockable title screen from F-Zero X. Must have been a reused asset or something like that. I think it'd be cool if like Smash used a lot more things from the original games, like in some capacity. In the background of Mushroom Kingdom stage, green Koopa Troopas can be seen walking back and forth across platforms. This contradicts every Mario game to date, whereas red Koopas turn when coming to an edge, while green Koopas will simply walk off the edge. Ooh. And they say that Sakurai did his research and knows what he's doing. See, man, you can't trust this guy with any of your characters, because he'll just, you know, destroy all the credibility. For some reason, the announcer says Fox differently in the Japanese version than the international version, even though Fox is a character with no name differences in any regions. It is impossible, at least without the use of a cheat device, to clear all 8 digits in the points counter in one-player mode. Wonder what that's all about. On Hyrule Castle, the maximum tomatoes items never appears. If it is the only item put on using the item switch, all boxes and capsules will either explode or be empty. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I have to see if that's true as well. One of Peach's castle's hazards is a bumper, which is mostly used as an item. Coincidentally, this is the first stage to use an item as a hazard and have a hazard outside of its own universe. Peach's castle is from Mario and the bumper is from Smash Bros. Yeah, I think they actually got rid of the bumper in one of the games or something like that. I think it was Wii U and they brought it back in Ultimate, but I could be wrong. I remember they got rid of the fan in Ultimate. I always wondered what the deal with that was. Like, even if it was a little unfair, like, I feel like they could have just nerfed it a little bit, but I don't know. There apparently were plans that all Falco, Peppy, and Slippy from Star Fox were going to be in Smash, but they decided to only include Fox, and I have heard that as well. And apparently the idea was going to be that like each of those characters were going to be a different costume, and I don't know if that's once again, I've heard that before, but that just doesn't seem right to me because obviously they're all color coded, and I guess you could say blue for Falco, Fox for red, green for Slippy, but I don't know. I mean, yellow for Peppy, that just doesn't sound right. But I don't know, I think it would have been cool if they had done that anyway. Final Smashes were planned, but the N64's limitations had them cut from the game. Eventually, they would make their debut in Brawl. This is Samus's first appearance in a 3D game. She would not get her own 3D game appearance until Metroid Prime in 2002 on the GameCube. And that's about it for Smash 64. Holy shit, that Mr. Game & Watch, you can tell they didn't do the model correctly because, you know, obviously he's still in the 3D, so it's kind of interesting that that's something that was on the cutting room floor, but it's actually in the game. Maybe it was an emulator issue, but it's so weird to see him not completely flat. But let's move on to some Melee trivia from IMDb. This was Mario's first appearance in a game with an ESRB rating higher than E for everyone, and the first game in the Smash Bros. Series to be rated T for Teen. It's pretty interesting. I'm surprised, Miyamoto allowed it at that point. There is a glitch in which you can play as Master Hand, but only player 3 can control him. Yeah, I've gone over that a little bit myself in the past. Essentially, it's where you have to do like something really weird, like you have to... Player 1 has to have her character readied up, and then player 3 has to be on like the name selection screen, and I think you both have to press like the start button or something like that, like 2 buttons at the same time on different controllers. And if you time it correctly, it just goes automatically to the stage selection screen. And since player 3 didn't choose their character, it defaults to, the character that I believe is like, if you didn't select someone, it's like 000 character, the first character in the hex slot or something like that. And that is Master Hand, interestingly enough. And, he has like moves mapped to the controller and all that other stuff. It's not like normal moves. Usually you gotta like press multiple buttons at certain points and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting stuff. And he only works on certain stages though, like so if it's like the F-Zero stage where the background moves constantly and stuff like that, it doesn't really work. But if it's like Final Destination or any stage I believe that like doesn't have any sort of obstructions like the O-Net or any sort of like pretty much an open area and stuff like that, I think that Master Hand is pretty playable. But if it has any obstructions like the O-Net or the freaking Ice Climber stage where it's the vertical scrolling, good lord, obviously you can't really play on that stage with Master Hand, and he was never meant to be on that stage. The monkey rap background music for the Congo Jungle stage contains the lyrics, "The Kong's one heck of a guy." This is changed from the original version of the rap featured in the game Donkey Kong 64 for the N64. The original lyrics were, "This Kong's one hell of a guy." Ironically, Super Smash Bros. Melee received a harsher T rating compared to Donkey Kong 64's E rating. Interesting. Prior to the game's release, no game in Nintendo's Fire Emblem series had ever received an official North American release, which caused some confusion amongst Western gamers who were introduced to Marth and Roy via Smash Bros. Melee. Well, it's not like people really knew who the hell Ness was in the West at the time when he came out either. I think, Earthbound kind of flew under the radar for most people at that time. And he's another good example of why Smash kind of made people want to play and try out other new series and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Hideo Kojima had requested that Metal Gear Solid Snake be in the game, but due to time constraints he couldn't be added to the game's roster. Sonic the Hedgehog also nearly made it into the game. Sonic's creator Yuji Naka stated that Sonic was going to be in Melee, but it was cut due to time constraints. Both characters later made it into all the future installments. Well, Snake wasn't in 3DS or Wii U. King Dedede was considered for adding, but Masahiro Sakurai decided against adding him as to not overrepresent the Kirby franchise. That's kind of interesting. I mean, Kirby's the only one who was in that game, and you know, I think one extra character wouldn't have been a big deal at that time for like Kirby and stuff like that. Especially since, you know, in Brawl, I mean, 2 characters were added, Meta Knight and freaking King Dedede, so I don't know what the deal is with that. But I don't know, it was probably like a thing of he was worried about it because, you know, Kirby was his series and he didn't want people to think he was playing favorites or something like that. Which, I mean, come on, man, he totally did with Subspace Emissary, especially World of Light. Come on, what a guy, man. If the players look closely on the Metal Mario trophy, there's a reflection of the Yoshi's Island stage on it. I've tried to look at that myself, and I've even seen videos about it. I don't know, I've never been able to really see it, but I also have really terrible eyesight. The letters 2L, 8, 4ME, Too Late for Me, were printed on the back of the Barrel Cannon trophy. The voices of the characters in the game come from a variety of different sources. Mario's voice comes from Mario 64. Link and Young Link's voices come from Ocarina of Time. Yoshi's voice comes from Yoshi's Story. The voices of Fox, Samus, Kirby, Pikachu, Captain Falcon, Jigglypuff, Ness, and Donkey Kong all come from their original Super Smash Bros. Appearances. The voices recorded specifically for this game, meaning Melee, were those of Peach, Zelda, Sheik, Ice Climbers, Bowser, Marth, Roy, Pichu, Mewtwo, Gannondorf, and Mr. Game & Watch. However, Gannondorf's voice is basically the high-pitched version of his voice from Ocarina of Time. Interesting, so his voice was actually deeper at that point. And he already has a pretty damn deep voice. Wolf and Wario were considered to be playable characters, and it was confirmed by Masahiro Sakurai there will be clone characters in the game. Wario was considered to be a clone of Mario, but Sakurai felt that Wario deserved better than to be a clone of Mario, so instead, Wario was replaced by Dr. Mario. Wolf was considered to be a clone of Fox, but Sakurai felt that Wolf would be described as a gray-colored fox, so instead he used Falco Lombardi as a playable character, although Wolf and Wario were later used in future installments. I mean, I get exactly what he means about the Wolf thing, and I'm glad that they waited because, I mean, I think that everything surrounding him in this game, I feel like it just would have, it was just better to wait because he's a lot more unique, especially in this game with like his weird jerky animations and stuff like that. So it was cool that they gave him more time, and Falco does definitely seem a lot, he's one of those characters that feels a lot more unique in comparison to most clone characters. And right there, folks, I mean, people hate that Sonic was inputted in the end of the game, but I think it's one of the coolest scenes, him just coming to save everybody's asses at the end. But yeah, this is about it, folks. We finally beat everybody, and this is the final battle here. We actually have 6 people. Which, I don't know, I thought it was only 4 that you could use, but that's pretty crazy. Whoa! Yeah, he doesn't seem too hard anyway. Upon closer examination, the Metroid trophy shows a reflection of a dimly lit laboratory. This reflection is a replication of the laboratory seen in the title screen of the SNES classic Super Metroid. Oh. Marth and Roy were originally going to be Japanese exclusives, but Nintendo decided to put them in all regions because the fans outside of Japan had become interested in Fire Emblem because of this game is releasing. Once again, I mean, we've seen it a million times. I've bragged about it 20 times as if people don't already know about it. Smash helps other series. There was a glitch in Daisy's trophy where if the player zooms the camera inside of her hair, there appears to be an eye on the back of her head. It was a later fix in the Player's Choice version. Banjo and Kazooie, James Bond, and Conker were all considered to be playable fighters. However, you know, James Bond couldn't do his license. Banjo and Conker were being owned by Rare, and prior to the launch of Melee, Rare was purchased by Microsoft. Despite this, Banjo and Kazooie were later added in 2018, which obviously, you know, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is DLC. I just don't believe this. I mean, maybe, like, I could believe James Bond was going to be in frickin' Smash Bros. Before frickin' Conker. You know, there's no way Nintendo was going to allow Conker to be in frickin' Smash Bros, man. I just don't buy it. Especially since Conker wasn't really that popular at the time. I think it was only something that came, you know, once again became more popular later on because of you know, the legend surrounding it, you know, because I mean, he came out like in 2001, which was the end of like the life cycle of the N64. So yeah, I think Conker is kind of a legend that became more popular later on as time came on, I think. Then the following secret characters are found in the game: Luigi, Jigglypuff, Pichu, Roy, Marth, Young Link, Gannondorf, Mr. Game & Watch, and Mewtwo. Alright, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how that's really trivia, but okay. Apparently there's 25 playable characters total, which is interesting. Brawl has 35, so 10 new characters were added in this game. The best-selling game for the GameCube with more than 7 million copies sold. Also the first GameCube game to sell over 1 million copies. Good lord. That's interesting. This was the first Smash game where you could move the camera in the pause menu more freely. Players discovered Peach's underwear being exposed when doing this. This was not changed for Brawl, oh good lord, but was changed in Smash for Wii U when a shadow was added to block the player's view. Good lord, man, people would do anything to see some plugging panties. Lucas was originally going to be a playable character, but after Earthbound 64's cancellation, Ness took his place. I think I mentioned it before, you know, the disk drive was a thing, and we're going to have Earthbound 64 as, you know, in addition to that game and stuff like that. But it never ended up happening because, you know, the disk drive was such a failure, so the games got canceled, and eventually, you know, Mother 3 came out on the Game Boy Advance, I believe, and was Japan exclusive again. And if you're wondering, so I'm actually gonna just face the last remaining fighters that I had to unlock in this game, and I could do it, you know, easier ways by doing like classic mode to get Toon Link and stuff like that, but I wanted to find all the characters and just fight them in story mode and show off their cutscenes they have for Subspace Emissary and stuff like that before we end this video. So we got Toon Link, we're gonna have Jigglypuff, and then we're gonna have a Wolf. The track called Fountain of Dreams does foreshadow a Game Boy Advance reboot of Kirby's adventure called Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland. Additionally, Roy also foreshadows Fire Emblem The Blinding Blade. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like I think this was really like the first time that Smash was used as like something to promote a future product incoming. I think they even have like a trophy of Olimar to promote Pikmin that was going to come out at the time. I forget, I think maybe Pikmin was delayed at the time, but I can't remember. First time in the series that Captain Falcon and Ness are available from the start instead of unlockable. Apparently, in this game, this is the first time Diddy Kong had her Rare logo removed from her beret. I didn't even know she had that, honestly. Just months before, the Microsoft Game Studios acquired Rare in 2002. Yeah, it's always a sad story with the Rare company and whatnot, that they got taken by Microsoft and had nothing done with them whatsoever. But apparently I think Rare really didn't like working with Nintendo either. When Peach is in giant form via the Super Mushroom or during Giant Melee, her deepened voice sounds almost equivalent to when she was voiced by Nintendo of America's organization manager at the time, Leslie Swan, in Western version Super Mario 64 and Mario Kart 64, whom had the deepest voice of all voice actresses whom voiced Peach over the years. Fox, Falco, Peppy Hair, and Soapy Toad are all voiced by Rare employees in the Adventure Mode cutscenes, and, you know, they were also the same voices for the characters in Star Fox Adventures, the last Rare game in 2002. Or, I mean, last Nintendo game is what I actually mean by final game. And I think the final one I'm going to share with you guys here is the first Smash Bros. Game with side specials, obviously side smashes as well, such as, you know, Luigi's Green Missile, Fox and Falco's Phantom Dash, and Mario's Keep Reflect. And that's going to be about all for today's playthrough, folks, so thank you so much for watching. This is the end of the Subspace Emissary playthrough, but we're still going to continue doing All-Star and a little bit of boss battle modes after this with some of my favorite characters. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out next week's episode on Nintendo Tuesday. Make sure to ring the notifications bell to be updated of my daily playthrough content. But above all else, please remember to have a nice day.